You are now back behind enemy lines. Hey there, how you doing, everybody? Gene Berardelli, Ross Galloway here with you. Ross, what's going on, man?
I did not think you'd make it back in time, and I thought I'd be left unsupervised for a couple of seconds here.
I'm a little out of breath because I had to run across the house and put the show on my mother's television on YouTube. Now she wants to watch it live, and my sister is currently out of the state for work, so I'm in charge of everything in the house, and apparently that includes TV controls as well. But hi, Mom.
Well, hello, Mrs. Berardelli.
Yep. We all say hi. We all love you. How you doing, man? We missed last week because of me, because I've been very busy with work stuff. I've had to take some time away from the channel, and kind of left everybody high and dry. But I tried to let everybody know in the community section on YouTube what's going on. Hope you didn't miss me too much, but we're here now, right?
Well, I missed you, man. I've been catching up on a lot of yard work. It's tough to find help nowadays.
You mean you can't just go to Home Depot anymore? And
it's tough to find help in these parts, so I've been doing a lot of it myself.
I'm going to leave that one there. So we have an interesting show we're going to get to, talking about some tariff stuff, talking about the new quote-unquote leadership of the Democratic Party, according to everyone, and how stupid and buffoonish they are. And we might mention a little bit about another show concept we're going to be doing weekly here as well. But before we get to all the good stuff that we have going on both here on the channel and, you know, in our lives and all the stuff that we like to bring you in on, I'm going to ask you guys and remind you that if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, or don't, according to Galloway, because he always screws it up for me. But definitely leave a like, smash the thumbs up button if you like what you're seeing here in this show right here. We're glad you're here watching us, whether you're on YouTube, on Rumble, on X. We're on all those platforms live simultaneously right now. Oh, technology. Where was this like 5 years ago when we were all hanging out together, or 10 years ago, whatever it was, right? We would have, it would have been such a party line. It would have been crazy. But please do all that stuff wherever you are, like and share and follow and all that. And if you want to, get in the comments. And especially if you want to do like a super chat or something like that, we certainly won't turn you down. But pretty much all interesting comments will be addressed, accepted, disagreed with. Maybe we'll make fun of you. Who the hell knows?
Especially offensive ones. We like those.
Oh, we like offensive. Yes, we like the offensive ones. Although the cursing will only begin about 15, 20 minutes deep into the show. So I leave it up to Galloway. Dealer's choice, my friend. You want to talk about tariffs? You want to talk about Jasmine Crockett? You want to talk about AOC? What's your pleasure? I'm serving them all.
We got to dive into the news of the last few days. The tariffs. That's the big thing.
All right.
People are panicking, bro, for no reason.
Now, I do want to give a disclaimer to everyone, just so we can cover our ass here. We're not economists. We are not anywhere near economists. I have a minor in economics from the 20th century, so I know a little something. But we both have common sense, and I think we're going to be talking about here is not necessarily the nuts and bolts of the financial aspect of things, but certainly about the political strategy of that, because we're both adept at discussing that, as well as negotiating. As an attorney, I negotiate things all the time, sometimes at a low level, sometimes at a high level. And of course, Ross has experience not only in the political strategy, but also in this sort of negotiating, deal making, especially dealing with chains of command in the military and things like that. So we're going to take that sort of angle at this, my friend. Earlier today, Trump issued a 90-day stay, I guess you would call it, of most of the global tariffs that he was talking about. And his main message to everyone out there, all you Americans watching the show and everybody else in between, just be cool, man.
Well, everybody knew you had to do it, but they never had the guts to do it. It does take guts. It even takes guts for our country to go through it. That's why I say be cool. They were saying about, see, just be cool. It's going to work out. It's going to work out, and it's working out. I can tell you, working out maybe faster than I thought. But I said it's going to take a little conditioning. It's a transition to. It's really, I think it's a transition to greatness. It's going to be greatness. Our country is going to be, there'll be nothing like it. And people investing in our country, they're going to do better than they've ever done before.
A transition to greatness, my friend. What are your thoughts?
So much like I said this in the past about Trump, like, I mean, obviously we like Donald Trump, right? I think the man's brilliant. He doesn't always explain things the best. He explains things like a regular person, but then sometimes when it's on the business side of the house, you know, he just assumes, he has the curse of knowledge, where he assumes everyone's tracking along with what he's saying. There's a lot to get into with tariffs, obviously, right? But I just want to start with this one thing. All of the people that have been wrong about damn near everything over the last 20 or 30 years were saying that Trump is about to crash the economy. They actually said it in his first term, too. I trust Trump on this one, okay? This is his forte. If you notice, the rest of his administration is kind of on autopilot. He's got key players leading every secretary level position, and they're doing his bidding without him having to micromanage any of them. So he's focusing in on the economy with his economic advisors. I trust the man. I don't trust the people who told us about COVID or global warming or the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. I don't trust those people, right? So I trust Trump. We'll start there.
Okay, let's take a step back and sort of like the 30,000 foot view of things. I want to take it back to just basic concepts of negotiation. Let's talk about that for a moment. The aspects of negotiation that I think maybe people don't realize that they deal with in their everyday life is that you leverage advantages that you can, minimize disadvantages or flaws on your side, and come to an arrangement that absolutely nobody thinks they won completely. What's going on here, in my opinion, and I said this on social media, I'm going to get to a little bit of some back and forth I had with friends of mine who are Republicans, who consider themselves conservative, who don't like what Trump is doing, and we'll use that as sort of the other side of the argument. What Trump is doing here is not about tariffs. It's not about asserting economic dominance over anyone. What it is about is using tariffs as a tool within his negotiation quiver, let's call it, because you have arrows that kept in the quiver and whatever. I know it's an old reference, but go with me on this. He has these tools that he could leverage in order to assert pressure on the other side of the negotiating table, which would be basically the rest of the world, either individually, collectively, whatever group or region they want to talk about. And Trump is showing his commitment and his will to use tariffs if necessary in order to get what he ultimately wants, which is a reset globally of the economic playing field that has been so neglected by decades of American policy and globalization, to be perfectly honest. So in order to get to that reset point, Trump is using what leverage he has, which is the greatest economy known to man, and is trying to use that to create a new paradigm in global trade and global economics. And that's the premise I gave to people. In fact, my words to my friends were, do you get it now? Do you understand that it's not about the tariff themselves and raising money or changing things up in that respect, but it's really about resetting the balance? And what do you think, first of all, what do you think about what I'm saying here? Are you on board with me with this?
I'm only partially on board with Eugene.
Okay.
So I do agree with you. He's using that tool or whatever whatever you were saying about
the arrow in the quiver.
Arrows, yeah. So yeah, he's using it as a tool, right? But there's a lot more to it. Sometimes it is just about tariffs, right? Trump is a master negotiator. Yes, that's true. He if you looked at the chart that he was standing out there talking about a couple of days ago, all of the tariffs or other inequities that are against United States exports into other countries or imports into their countries, our tariff rate was going to be half of whatever theirs was, right? Which was much higher than it used to be, but way lower than what they're charging us. At the end of the day, even if someone went to 0% against us, he was keeping a 10% tariff. And that's why I'm saying sometimes it really is just about tariffs. Trump believes, and so do I, that generating revenue from external sources, other countries, is not necessarily a bad thing. China, when it sells something to us on Temu, the profit margin is like 98% on that Chinese-made good you're buying. If you charge China 100% tariff, now their profit margin is 96% instead of 98%. They're going to eat that tariff, and we're going to generate revenue. So sometimes it is just about tariffs. But at the end of the day, like he said, External Revenue Service, 10% across the board. We consume roughly 40% of the world's goods. We make up way less than that in the world's population, right? So in order to gain access to our markets, you might have to pay a tariff to get in. I'm not saying it should be 90%, right? Because then you start incrementally increasing prices here. But at 10% off the top, the government gets its VIG. Hopefully that helps us pay down the debt. I'm all right with that.
It really is like the mafia. Sometimes you got to pay the VIG. Sometimes you got to pay an entrance fee at the door. You know, you got to pay the cover charge. But you raise a good point in that the negotiations are not homogenous. There are negotiations with bad actors like China that use slave wage labor and are able to undercut prices in that respect. And then there's, individual countries that you can negotiate with. And then there's regions like the European Union that you have to negotiate with collectively. And even then, some nations have a VAT, some nations don't. So it's not one size fits all, certainly. But I want to address the comments from this friend of mine that was concerned about Trump tariffs. So let me see if I can do this right, because this is a new feature on here. There it is. And I'm going to embiggen my screen so I can see it now. The comment from my friend when I said, do you get it now? This wasn't about tariffs. This was about the market itself. What does that even mean? Trump already rejected 0-for-0 trade deals and never lifted the auto, aluminum, or steel tariffs. Well, he didn't say that he was lifting them all. He was lifting some. What are the 0-for-0 trade deals that this friend of mine is referencing, pal?
I'm lost. I don't know of any country of significance that charges America a zero tariff at all. Who is that person?
Well,
that
didn't Vietnam offer a 0-for-0 trade deal?
They did after we had to tariff them. Vietnam was killing us with tariffs. I forget. It was one of the higher percentages they were charging us.
Right. So I don't know necessarily if it was a 0-for-0 offer straight up or what the details of it were. But it was proof that Trump's plan worked. By raising those tariffs, he had countries come to the table to offer, let's take this for truth, 0-for-0 trade deal. That's proof that Trump's strategy was working, because America is the greatest economic engine in the world, in my opinion. And any hurt that a tariff would put on our economy would be felt a lot more on everyone else out there. Why do you think global markets dropped that much and U.S.'s drop was tolerable? For the world economy, they were worried about a global recession. Trump was the one making the actions. Everyone else was reacting to it. Even now, Trump says we're going to put a stay on them. The market rebounded. Everyone else is on the back foot. Trump is the one steering the ship here. Let's go to the next sentence. I'll give you a chance to comment on that as well. It's a global tariff rate of 10% when it was closer to 2% when he took office. Is that accurate?
I don't know. No. Well, it's a global tariff rate that we're going to charge everybody bare minimum 10% to gain access to our market, right? But my question is this, Gene. If tariffs are bad and they destroy economies, then why does every country on the planet charge the United States a greater tariff rate than us, including our friends, the Europeans, the Australians? They all have higher tariffs against us than we have against them. If they're so bad and they destroy economies, then why are they doing it to us?
Because they are taking advantage of the global marketplace. Because we've all decided to become a global economy at some point, starting from the 90s and moving forward, the U.S. has allowed a lot of our business, a lot of our industry to leave our country and go to these other places that were being offered more attractive tax rates in some respects, or lower costs of doing business, or cheaper labor, or whatever the case may be, and then charged us to get those goods and services back here. And I think what Trump is doing is trying to reset that globalization that hurt our manufacturing. Why do you think auto and aluminum and steel love tariffs? Because they're now competitive again in their own country. That's why they want those tariffs. And it'll keep producers and maybe even bring producers into America so they can avoid those tariffs.
And you kind of touched on some of the things that are like that cause companies to leave the United States to manufacture their goods in other countries and then send them back here and sell them here, right? Lower wages and stuff like that. So you have to ask yourself the question, like, why are these companies leaving? Well, they're making their T-shirts in China and everything else in your house basically made in China because they have slave labor, like you had mentioned, right? So how do you compensate for that and stay competitive in a free and fair market? Is it a free and fair market when we have unions that demand, and I'm not saying this is wrong, demand a living wage for our workers, a middle-class living wage with benefits? The government tells them they have to have health insurance, they have to pay into Social Security. There's a bunch of stuff that we require companies to do here that other countries don't. So when a company is faced with trying to cut costs, they ship their factory to another country and then sell it back here. So is it wrong to charge them a 10% off the top tariff to send their goods back here to access to our market where our companies are paying people living wages? No, it's not. Right? I think 10% is very fair, and anyone who charges us more, I'm with Trump. It's got to be reciprocal.
I certainly agree with that. So the next question from the commenter is, or the next comment I should say from the commenter, is that tariffs are just a huge tax increase on Americans without action from Congress, and going with taxation without representation argument. And to this, I say, what? What ends up happening with a tariff is that the source of the goods and services would change. Instead of getting the goods from overseas, it'll come from domestic production. If you have tariffs overseas on our goods that are exorbitant, and now the other goods aren't coming here, the market has grown for our domestic products to stay domestically here. If we're not getting cars from Japan, or from Mexico, let's say, because that's where one of the production places are, then you're going to get cars from American builders, even American builders that are owned by countries outside of us, right? So I'm trying to understand, how is this a tax increase when what this does is really just a substitution of one's goods versus another's goods?
So a couple of points there I just want to hit. One, the 10% across the board, at first, I wanted a little more information on it, and then Trump kind of did, or one of Trump's people explained this pretty well. I think it was Bassett. Let's say Zimbabwe, because they're a developing nation, we charge them 0. China then opens a factory in Zimbabwe and uses them as a pass-through to ship their goods to the United States. So they had to make it 10% across the board to ensure no one cheats at the tariffs. The second piece about the taxes part, left of center people, and even some on the Republican side, I don't understand this. You'll hear them say things. I talked about this a couple weeks ago. You'll hear them say things like the corporate tax in the United States is too low. We need to raise that. The capital gains tax in the United States is too low. We need to raise that. Big corporations need to pay their fair share. They say things like that. A tariff is, in effect, it is a tax. It's a tax on a foreign corporation, right? Why do Democrats and rhinos support raising taxes on American companies, but not on foreign companies? Someone needs to explain that one to me.
It's the 80-20 that we've been talking about for weeks and months here on the show. Just skipping down in the comment here, why would any business want to invest in the USA right now under such a cloud of uncertainty? Well, there's choices here, right? So one of the choices would be, if you want to avoid the tariffs, then you invest in America. You bring your production here. That's one way. Or, alternatively, if you want American investment to grow, then this protectionism of certain industries would help, because the tariff would then encourage those who are receiving the benefit of the tariff to increase their own work product here and invest more in America. So you even get investment from one way or investment from the other way.
But
pretty simple to me.
Yeah, but I don't even understand the point of that question, though.
Exactly. Yes.
The point of the tariff, it would be, Trump says this, but it's not really the totally desired outcome to have foreign companies all of a sudden start building stuff in America. That's why I said, like, the tariffs thing is kind of an all of the above with what Trump is trying to do. Yes, it'll be nice if some companies start investing in America and building their factories here. It will also be nice if foreign countries lower their tariffs to the rate we're charging them, or we make a deal with them, we charge zero each way, and they don't cheat by going through a pass-through country, right? And then Americans' goods and services that they're buying from overseas, the prices would actually go down, right? Without them investing in the United States, they would just be selling products here that aren't tariffed, and theoretically it would go down. So there's lots of things that tariffs can do besides being used as leverage for other things, like the bad actors you were talking about. And Trump was like teasing that maybe China will make a deal with TikTok because we can lower tariffs, right? It gives them some leverage there. But sometimes it truly is just about the tariffs. It's not always about those other things.
Right. And the other thing that we're also missing out on here, pal, is it's not the economic policy is not just tariffs. It's tariffs plus other things in the economy. For instance, we're going to be talking about this on another show, but Chris Matthews was having a heart attack over lumber. And where are we going to get our lumber from? He clearly has been to Alaska to see how many trees there are there. So it's not just a tariff on lumber from Canada. It's a tariff on lumber from Canada plus an executive order for the government to do all it can to encourage and support our domestic lumber industry. It's not just a tariff on the European Union. It's finding savings in USAID that will then take the place of any lost revenue from any loss of business as a result of a tariff. It's a balancing act of many different things, of income revenue streams and expenditures that goes along with the tariffs that make them tolerable for the economy.
Yes. And, I hit on some of these before, but I just want to run through them again or add to them. So you mentioned one of them, right? Part of the purpose of a tariff is to raise revenue for the government that's charging it. Another thing is to protect an industry within their own country, like steel, which you kind of need for the military. Lumber would be another good one, right? To build houses, right? So protecting some domestic businesses. And then you have to hedge against, and I mentioned some of these before, that we pay higher pay rates in this country than a lot of other countries, right? How do you compete fairly with a foreign company that's paying slave wages in a lot of instances? How do you compete with foreign countries like China does this because they gain monopolies in certain areas by subsidizing industries at exorbitant rates? We flirt with that idea here too sometimes. But if you subsidize an industry where if it was left to the free market, they would go out of business, but the government's paying more than half the weight, it winds up putting the American company that was competing with it out of business. So how do you compensate for that? You might have to charge a tariff equal to the amount that the government is subsidizing that industry in that foreign country. And then there's a few other things that, Europe has a value-added tax. It's sort of like a federal sales tax. That greatly impacts the cost of things that we ship there to sell. A lot of countries also have rules that are not conducive to the United States doing business there, like China. China, when you open a company in China, they have to have a 51% stake in the business. So they automatically basically own your business when you send it there. You can't sue in Chinese courts if you're not a Chinese citizen. Intellectual property, they don't follow any of the rules with that. They steal it all and then they make knockoffs and sell them back to us. And then the last one, in a place like Mexico, foreigners are not allowed to own land there. So go ahead and try to open a business. You have to rent, possibly from the government, and pay exorbitant fees there too. So they have all these rules set up to make American businesses fail. The only way to sort of equalize that playing field is to charge the tariff on them. You have to until they fix theirs.
And by the way, I know we mentioned a lot of that already, but here's one thing we haven't mentioned. Access to our market. Is there a reason why we should allow a bad actor like China to have unfettered access to our market, to our economy, to our consumer base? Or yes, we get the benefit of cheaper prices, but that's really living off of slave labor, which a lot of people on the left they seem to forget that they're doing every time they use their iPhone. But in all honesty, shouldn't there be, like we said earlier, a cover charge, an entrance fee to have access to the people who are powering the greatest economic engine known to man? I mean, isn't that only fair that the house should get a cover?
I mean, Gene, you can sell items on your front lawn. You might have some implications with the government that might harass you, but if you wanted to open up a stand in a flea market, you got to pay for a booth, right? You want access to that market, you got to pay, right? And we don't want to make it exorbitant because then eventually prices could go up here. But a 10% charge on a country that's making over a 90% profit margin, that's not a problem.
And honestly, when you think about it, moving your business and investing in the U.S. is the same thing as a cover charge. And we're only collecting half the covers at the door. Those that are here and are investing in infrastructure, hiring Americans, paying them, paying sales taxes, paying income taxes in certain cases. Obviously there are loopholes to get around all that. But spending money here in order to make money here, yet those from outside expect to get free entry and to block us when we look for the same. I mean, when I heard about a Canadian tariff on dairy that was criminal, in my opinion, at how high it was, I'm saying to myself, how do we let it get this far? And the answer is, honestly, and this sounds like a buzzword we're going to say, but globalists. We've been trying to build a global economy because we thought sort of a Gallowayism here that a rising tide lifts all boats. It hasn't seemed to work that way because you still have bad actors not playing by the rules, among other things, among value-added taxes, among high rates when you enter a market, or you want to, or they require you to invest in that country, or whatever the case may be. All the other barriers of entry that are out there. Why is it rules for us but not for anybody else? The answer is because they know that we can afford it. And that's what makes the Trump plan and his approach to this genius. He's saying, we're cutting off the gravy train for you guys. You've had an advantage for 30 years, and now it's time for that advantage to go away. And he's pointing to the old guard who have benefited from this globalist relationship and this emergence of a global market, like the Pelosi's and the Schumers out there, who want to maintain the status quo, which, by the way, would be the definition of a conservative position. But I'm putting that aside. Trump is saying that it's time to shift the paradigm, and it's not about the issuance of a tariff. It's using tariffs in a certain way to convey your message and to gain the biggest advantage you can possible in this realignment that Trump wants to do.
Yep. And I'd say, number one, most people probably still, but definitely 2 weeks ago, had no idea what a tariff was. It's something they mentioned in like 7th grade history class, and they forgot all about it. They don't know what they are. They don't know what they're for. Most people don't know what they are. When they figured out what they were, the ones that did, most of them were shocked, because I was, at the tariff rates that are being imposed on the United States. I had no idea some of them were that far out of control, because even the Republicans for decades now have been touting free and fair trade. That's the way to go. It hasn't been free and fair.
No, it hasn't.
You had mentioned something else about these other countries selling into our markets, and it's because we're rich and we can afford it. It's funny because I was thinking about this earlier today. One of the arguments is like these developing countries, or especially after World War II, Europe was destroyed. Let's lower tariffs, allow them to export into the United States at low cost or no cost, free and fair trade, a rising tide will lift all boats, right? But then I started thinking about, so what has the United States been doing over the last 50 years plus? We print money, we go into debt, while other countries are fleecing us, and many of those countries are buying our debt. We owe China about $5 trillion out of our massive $30-some-odd trillion deficit, right? That is completely insane that a developing country owns over $5 trillion of our debt. They got a stranglehold on us.
Right. So we need to start doing some debt service. And the way we do debt service is to make more disposable income for everybody to spend more, so we can collect more taxes and we can raise more income from everyone. And if we're not looking at a revenue stream from outside the country to that end, then are we just going to keep on going further and further into debt? What is that the plan? What is the alternative? Is what I'm asking, kind of. What else can be done instead of raising taxes on hardworking Americans? And the whole idea of the millionaires and the billionaires that they want to think is going to be this panacea for raising more and more money, bilk them till they're dry. What is the plan? What is the alternative to what Trump is doing here?
Yeah, I mean, Gene, either we protect manufacturing and our industries here in some way, shape, or form, or we'll all be working at Walmart or Starbucks selling Chinese-made goods. Like, that is the alternative, right? If we don't produce things here and we just consume things from other countries, that's the alternative, right? So that's why I said sometimes a tariff is just a tariff. There's some protectionism there, which I'm not against, right? We need a steel industry. We invented cars and televisions and radios. We don't make any of those anymore here, right? So how has all that free and fair trade been working out, Republican Party?
Well, obviously this is a wait and see situation. We're going to see what happens with these 90 days. One of the questions that we didn't get to in the comments, and there was another comment that I could have put up, but it would take up too much of the show, is what happens after the 90 days is up? Well, here's the beauty of that. We can see where we stand in 90 days and make a decision on that, including whatever the new global shift would be, going back to tariffs and seeing if they want to test our will again, or give it another 90 days or 180 days. Whatever needs to be done can be done because the president would be able to do that. Well, that's what you can do after 90 days.
Yeah, pause as long as they're negotiating in good faith. If they're not negotiating in good faith, there should be no pause, right? If you're not negotiating in good faith, no pause. And by the way, that comment you posted earlier or put up earlier about without a word from Congress or without a vote from Congress. The whole reason why the president has this power is because previous Congresses have delegated this power to the president of the United States. They did vote on this. They wanted this. They can take this power away from him if they choose to. This is not in the Constitution that the president gets to impose tariffs. It would be Congress, but Congress delegated it to the executive. There you go.
Yeah, absolutely right. That's how it works. It's continuity of government, right? I think we've covered this topic pretty well, and good job, man. I like the discussion we had here. We didn't agree on everything, and for once that worked out pretty well. So we are at halftime here on the show. And I want to say to everybody who's watching right now, wherever you are on YouTube, on Rumble, on X, thanks for tuning into the show. I'm Gene. He's Ross. This is Behind Enemy Lines here on Buffoon of the Week on the channel on YouTube. Or if you're watching on my personal X at G Berardelli, or if you're watching on Rumble for Behind Enemy Lines, thanks for watching. You could be doing so many things tonight, yet you're here with us, and we really appreciate that. While you're here, wherever you are, like, comment, share the show with your friends, subscribe, follow, whatever it is that they want you to do. And if you feel so inclined to go even further than that and check us out a little more, you can always go to buffoonoftheweek.com to check out some of the articles that supplement our videos. There's some great stuff up there about Jasmine Crockett. I'm going to put up a quiz probably over the weekend that you can check out. That's buffoonoftheweek.com. And you can also go to shop.buffoonoftheweek.com for some awesome merch that we designed. And if I do say so myself, some of the designs are pretty damn cool. We have a whole Behind Enemy Lines line of stuff. Glassware, bottles, dog tags, shirts. It's all there at shop.buffoonoftheweek.com. And that just about takes care of the grift. We got through that pretty quickly. So
don't follow me.
Well, yeah. Don't hit the notification bell, Gallo says, right? You
follow the show, follow Gene. Don't follow me.
Well, nobody can follow you. We don't know where the hell you are. But yeah, he's going to tell you, don't hit that subscribe button. You get enough notifications on your phone. And you know what? He's got a little bit of a point there. I got a whole ton of notifications that come in all the time. I do end up ignoring them. So if you're not one to do that, don't do it. If you want that annoyance, go for it. Speaking of annoyance, I was looking for a segue there and I found one. Let's talk about what is being now termed by a lot of conservative thinkers out there as the new Democrat Party. We've talked about a lot of these people in this so-called new Democrat leadership. Is there a new Democrat leadership? What do you think?
They took my free advice a long time ago. More AOC and Jasmine Crockett, please. Are they the party's leadership? No, obviously, right? Like no one's chosen them. But the problem with the left is they have always been like a loosely connected party of misfits from every weird section of life. Whenever you see somebody in the street, Gene, I'll just paint a picture. Green hair, 6 nose rings, anarchy tattoo, any other deviant type thing on this person's body. Which party would you assume that they're affiliated with?
Trick question, because I would not assume they're affiliated with any party. I would say that their views are hard fringe leftist, because calling them Democrats would be insulting to them. They wouldn't want to be associated with the Chuck Schumers of the world, or the Nancy Pelosi's, or the Hakeem Jeffries now, who are not far left enough for them.
Well,
which is why I asked
I'm not
again.
saying they're in the party, but more closely affiliated, like they would vote. They're not voting for Donald Trump. If you had to guess who they voted for.
Well, they voted for the left, but they would be insulted to be called Democrats, is all I'm saying. But I get your point. They would be
being like an AOC. She is one of those big tent Democrats that, she's basically a socialist. I think she even admits it now. Bernie Sanders does admit that he's a socialist. So how do you unify a party like that behind American ideas, right? The vast majority of the party does not hold those ideals. So there's no way to unify them. And if you can't unify, you can't have a leader, right? You're going to have just multiple factions within your party always fighting. The Republican Party has some factions too, but on the big picture items, the big ticket items, we sort of agree, right? The Republican Party is what America, like we used to think American politics was. That almost all Republicans agree with the goal or the destination, but they truly do believe in getting there a different way, right? That used to be true of both parties. Now it's only true really in the Republican Party. The Democrats, I don't know what their goals are, right? They're having a hard time admitting that maybe men shouldn't play in female sports, and I don't know, maybe we shouldn't be cutting off the genitals of kids while they're in the 5th grade. Like they can't even admit those things because they can't unify because there's such a big tent with crazy factions that they're going to piss off a segment. So they can't have a leader. Who's going to lead them?
Well, the answer used to be Nancy Pelosi, who would be able to take all these factions and sort of bring them in line. But in this new Trump term, we've already seen the deposition of Chuck Schumer for being out of touch because of his flip-flop on the debt ceiling and the continuing
Just
resolution.
Pause there for a second, Gene.
Sure.
You can be nice and say that's why he's an old white Jewish man. That's why Josh Shapiro got the same treatment. The Democrats eat their own and they're racist. I was about to curse. I know we're past 15 minutes. I can. They're racist as hell. They hate Jews. Trust me on that one. Watch.
Don't think I haven't noticed you not cursing. I'm very proud of you. But that's why I'm saying that there's this new leadership, because there is a younger generation of further more radical leftists that are now seen as the leaders that rank and file you mentioned want to follow. Let's start with AOC. AOC is I believe, is the new face of the Democrat Party. I am predicting right now, and I think we did this last week as well, that she will run against Chuck Schumer for his Senate seat, and maybe not even have to run against him. Maybe Schumer will retire and see the writing on the wall. Who knows, after what happened with that whole debt ceiling thing. But AOC wants to be seen, as you said, like a socialist, because she comes from being a bartender. She came out of nowhere, and she was able to win a seat from an establishment Democrat who was in the leadership at the time. And she wants to be the face of the resistance, along with Bernie Sanders, in pushing a lot of these socialist ideals. But as it turns out, it looks like that her time in D.C. has made AOC stray from that sort of grassroots socialist position, at least in her personal dealings. This is a clip from Fox News that we'll be discussing in a moment here. Check this out, pal.
are laying into progressive Congresswoman from New York, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. The question here, is it fair that they're going after her over this? Take a look. She was caught on camera traveling first class on a JetBlue flight last month. She was on her way to Las Vegas to speak at a Fight Oligarchy event with Senator Bernie Sanders, events in which she has been railing against the wealthy elite.
We are witnessing an oligarchy in America. When those with the most economic, political, and technological power destroy the public good to enrich themselves, a certain ugly kind of politics that at its core is about lying to and screwing over working and middle-class Americans.
Other passengers told the New York Post this: nothing says power to the people like ignoring voters looking to say hello and reclining in first class while tweeting about income inequality. And AOC is fighting the system one first class mimosa at a time. What's your reaction? Is this fair ground?
Well, Harris asked it, Galloway. Is this fair ground?
Yeah, of course it's fair. Does she know what the term oligarchy means, right? And it's not a jab at anyone listening to us that doesn't know what it means. It's a political science term. Oligarchy simply really means your country is ruled by a small group of rich and elite, quote unquote, people, right? Rich men north of Richmond. What is our country for the last few hundred years? It's basically an oligarchy because of people like her in Congress, right? It's not as oligarchical as maybe Russia, okay, where it's like no holds barred, rich guys just get whatever they want, but it's pretty damn close here. And the people in Congress claiming to be men and women of the people while flying first class, and their stock portfolios go into the millions throughout their terms in Congress, it's pretty rich for them to go out there and throw stones at the quote unquote oligarchs.
Well, I tend to agree with that. My question is, isn't it the American dream to build yourself up from a bartender and get to travel first class and be heard and do your speaking routines and all the things that you're doing out there? Isn't that progress for someone who came from a poorer background? And I'm not saying AOC came from a poor background. I'm saying that isn't this the progression that you want to see in your own personal life? And if so, why is AOC shying away from it? She should be lauding herself as an American success story. She came from quote unquote lowly beginnings and was a bartender, whatever, it was for like a week or whatever. But this is a narrative. This is building a narrative. She can build the narrative that she came from these lowly things and worked her way and earned her way into Congress to the point that she became such a thought influencer that people are paying to fly her around the country to speak about what her views are. Why is that such a horrible thing for AOC to embrace?
Bro, she grew up in a rich part of Westchester County.
There was literally, I get that. There's literally no truth to the narrative, but it is
none. I don't think people know this. She's not from the Bronx. She's not from Queens. Yeah. She grew up in a rich part of New York in Westchester County. She's college educated. She worked at a bar for a while. She's college educated. Doesn't mean she's smart, obviously. But, she's not a woman of the people. And you're right, Gene. There's nothing to be ashamed of making money. I do not hate people who make money. I like people who make money. I want to make money, right? There's nothing wrong with it. The more money you make, fortunate or unfortunate, the more free speech you sort of have, right? And the Supreme Court has confirmed that money can be speech. I can give money to politicians. I can open up my own PAC. I can use that to do good things in politics or have influence, right? So that's just the way it is. So like I get the buzzword for them is oligarchy right now, but it doesn't even make sense to me because obviously if you have more money, you're going to have more benefits and more influence no matter which country you live in, right? Show me another country where that doesn't happen. And the nerve to fly on a first-class seat. I don't know if you saw Senator Kennedy from Louisiana, by the way. He was on Hannity the other night.
Oh,
and he said,
let's show people.
You have it? That's a great clip.
New leadership, Jasmine, AOC, and Bernie.
I consider Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez to be the leader of the Democratic Party. She's entitled to her opinion. I'm entitled to mine. As I've said about her before, I think she's the reason there are directions on a shampoo bottle. And our plan for dealing
you
with
didn't
her,
plan that out. We got to hurry.
Our plan for dealing with her is called Operation Let Her Speak.
Brilliant. And that's why Senator Kennedy is a hero of mine. And it sort of brings to the second half of what I want to talk about with her comments real quick. The hypocrisy is what the real issue is, in my opinion. It's the optics for some, but that's only the surface level. You go back to that clip from Fox News, and it says that people who wanted to shake her hand on the plane and actually like her, she ignored. And she's now become what we call a limousine liberal. That, she will fight for the cause of the little people, but she'll not be one of those little people. And she needs to be above it all and fly first class for these places because she is now, don't you know who I am? I'm the one fighting for you for your issues, even though she's not living that life anymore. The hypocrisy is more of an issue for me than anything else here. And I think that's what people are most upset about.
Yeah. And Gene, people like AOC, and truthfully, it's most of the Democratic Party. It affects the Republican Party too, but everything's relative. These people like AOC and Bernie Sanders and Chuck Schumer and Joe Biden, they're people that have never run anything. Not even like a lemonade stand or a hot dog stand, right? They've literally produced no good or service for sale that other people wanted to purchase. None. But they are the ones that are going to tell us how to run the biggest economy on the planet. Not Donald Trump, a successful businessman. Not the Secretary of the Treasury or the Secretary of Commerce, two other successful businessmen. Not them, but AOC. Her claim to fame, I don't know what her degree was in, but bartending and elected to Congress from Queens, New York. That's it. And she's going to tell us how to run the economy?
Which brings me to a fundamental difference between what I believe to be Republican conservative mindset versus the liberal hive mindset. Republicans do not require you to live the way that they live, i.e. in a capitalist system or a free market. If you want to go on a commune, or if you want to live like the Amish, you can do so, and Republicans wouldn't care. But AOC, Bernie Sanders, and her ilk are out there in these streets trying to tell you how to live, and that you must conform to their way of thinking. And that, to me, is the fundamental difference between the two different mindsets on both sides of the aisle.
And they're just full of shit, Gene. A couple of months ago, before Trump got elected, global warming or climate change was an existential threat. Another word that I don't think they know what it means, right? When was the last time you heard anyone talk about global warming?
I mean, it was like below freezing in the People's Republic of New York when I got up this morning to take the
or climate change. I haven't seen a big story about it. There's no more panic over it. Did we fix that? Right? No, we didn't fix it because it was never broken. Right? These people are dumb. They're full of shit.
Well, let's talk about people that are full of shit. Because we mentioned AOC, we mentioned Bernie Sanders. You said that I've had a sort of a fixation on Jasmine Crockett and how stupid she is. You said it off camera. Yeah, I think I do, because we're bringing her up again this week. This is a comment that actually you asked for, which I believe she was at a church in her district, and she had this to say about illegal immigration that many people took offense to, basically inferring that we need illegal immigrants for the menial jobs on farms that were done by slaves before, maybe even inferring that we need cheap labor the way that China and other places use cheap slave labor. Let's take a listen to this.
Educate people about what immigrants do for this country, or the fact that we are a country of immigrants.
Right.
The fact is, ain't none of y'all trying to go and farm right now.
Uh-oh.
Okay, so I'm lying. Raise your hands. You're not. We done picking cotton.
Yeah, there's a new class of slave that we can exploit now. And that's why we're bringing them here. We're bringing them here for the cheap labor and for their votes. That's the new slavery coming from Jasmine Crockett right there.
And Gene is always too nice. He said, you might even be able to say she was inferring it. No, she wasn't inferring. She said it. She said the quiet part out loud. And I've said this for over a decade now. The left wanted it. Now, I've come to evolve a little bit. The left also did want to import new voters. And I'm talking specifically about Hispanics. They assumed Hispanics would vote for them in perpetuity, right? And that's sort of backfiring. But what I've said for more than 10 years now is that what they really wanted was cheap labor. And the Republicans wanted this too, by the way. They just started coming around after Donald Trump, hit the scene. But they also wanted cheap labor, a.k.a. under minimum wage labor, a.k.a. borderline slave labor, right? And that's what the Democratic Party still thinks of Hispanics. So if you're Hispanic listening to us and you're considering voting Democrat, you just heard what they really think. They think your people should come here not to seek a better life and become Americanized and participate in our great experiment in democracy. They think you should come here and be our slaves. You need to cut our grass and pick our crops because we ain't doing that no more. That's what they think of you. Instead of saying, like, why don't we pay a living wage to the people that do those jobs and maybe Americans might take them. Maybe younger people would get interested in doing some of that stuff. Oh, and by the way, a lot of technological advances have happened since people were picking cotton in fields, right? Very few people pick crops nowadays. Believe me, I live near a lot of farms. There are no people out there picking. There are people driving big trucks harvesting.
Yeah. And Galloway just gave another clue. Galloway gave another clue here to where he is. Just saying. He lives in a place. Okay. Lot of farms. Did yard work. And I think I might have mentioned a pool at one point. Anyway.
Where in the world
is Russell Galloway? Yeah, baby. Let's not kid ourselves. This is the new leadership of the Democratic Party. They may not be the crowned leadership, but this is the new leadership. And Donald Trump and Republicans, like you saw with Senator Kennedy right now, or I should say earlier, they are hitting this button hard, including Donald Trump at the NRCC dinner.
They have lost their confidence. They've gone crazy. They've gone crazy. How about this new one they have? Their new star, Crockett. How about her? Is that real? Are they serious about that? That's their new star? If that's their new star, they're in serious trouble. I mean, this is Crockett. Oh, man. But we've done a job, but they've totally lost their confidence.
Absolutely. And in that, I guess, vacuum of leadership, the AOCs and the Jasmine Crockett's and the Bernie Sanders and the Ilhan Omar's and the Rashida Tlaib's and the Ayanna Presley's of the world, and they're all, and the Raskins and the Adam Schiffs are all bubbling up to the top, and they are now speaking for the left. There's no way you can negotiate with crazy.
Let me continue picking at this scab for a second. I want to just do a little experiment. We're going to reverse some roles here, switch out some words. On average, blacks are paid less than whites if you believe, the talking points on MSNBC. So
okay, so are we assuming that's true?
So we're just going to stipulate it's true for the sake of this argument, right? So what if someone came on TV, a Republican, let's say, and said, man, we really need to import more blacks into these towns and hire them in this factory because none of y'all want to work for those types of wages anymore, white people. Like, how would that go over? I'm just curious.
Well, I mean, didn't we kind of see that when Trump was increasing funding to historically black colleges and universities, and people were trying to make that into a bad thing in his first term? I think we saw the effects of that. To me, that is sort of the litmus test. What you just laid out is the litmus test for every policy to see whether or not it's objectively good or not. Switch the roles. If ABC said XYZ, what would be your reaction? We see it all the time on the internet. There's a lot of gotcha videos out there with someone saying, if a president said this quote, would you be against him? And then they say, of course, and who do you think said that quote? Well, it's Donald Trump. No, that was Joe Biden. what? And they start clutching the pearls. We're at the point now where I don't think there is, and I got to measure my words carefully here because I do want to hold out hope that I'm wrong. Is there a good faith, honest broker in the Democrat Party or on the left, if you want to say expand it out, that a Republican leader can reach out to in order to reach compromise and consensus anymore? I say no.
I say no too, and I say good. Listen, Gene, I
don't think that's good. That's not
Democrats are in a fucking death spiral, dude. How can you listen? Jasmine Crockett and AOC have been getting a lot of airtime lately, right? They're picking up some momentum here. And how did the Democrats stop them? How could they stop them? They're both women of color, right? How do you stop them? How do you ask them to step off the stage if you're a Democrat? You can't, right? We have crazies too. Remember MTG? She comes on TV once in a while, but she's not the leader of the party. She gets some BS subcommittee chair. She's not the chair of any real committee, right? We keep her under wraps. I like MTG personally, but I don't want her to be the face of our party.
You know what's a better
example? They can't stop these two.
You know what's a better example on the right? Matt Gaetz. When is the last time you heard anything from Matt Gaetz?
Well, this is where I disagree with you, by the way, because the Republicans sometimes go too far. I'm not saying we should banish MTG from the party, but Matt Gaetz basically got banished. And,
That's not what I'm saying.
And my boy George Santos from New York should still be in Congress, all right?
That's not what I'm saying. You're missing what I'm saying. What I'm saying is the left used to try to paint Matt Gaetz as the face of the Republican Party. When it has now been proven, based upon his absence, he's nowhere near it. Try to do the same to AOC. Put baby in the corner the way that Matt Gaetz was put into the corner and see what happens. You think AOC would be quiet, or you think she would be a force to still compete to be seen as the head of that party? I think she'd still be fighting.
No, I think you're right, because they're uncontrollable, and that's great for us, right? Like, there's no way. That's why I said they're not going to coalesce around a leader. I've heard some Democratic pundits have been saying this, and we had said this a few months ago. What the Democratic Party really, really, really needs is a Democrat version of Donald Trump, right? Someone that can herd all these cats back together and get them, following a leader. They can't do that there. They're never going to find one, and it would be mission impossible. Who's going to do it? Gavin Newsom? Josh Shapiro? None of those guys are going to be able to do that. AOC's not going to listen to Josh Shapiro. By the way, he's Jewish, so that automatically puts him out of the running. Mark my words.
They're going to marginalize themselves into oblivion is what's going to end up happening. So, yeah, I agree with Senator Kennedy. Operation Let Them Talk. Good ideas will rise to the top. Bad ideas will get weeded out.
I mean, we put them on every week. Yes, let them talk.
And we will continue to put them on every week on this show and other shows here on Buffoon of the Week on YouTube, on Rumble, and on X. My friend, we are just about at that time because we got other things to do in our lives. It's final thought time. I have a very simple one. I'm going to leave mine to the end. I'm going to let you go first.
Yeah, mine's a quick one, man. At the end of the day, and the White House tweeted this out or posted this on X, which was brilliant. Let Donald Trump cook, man. Let him cook. He knows what he's doing on all the big ticket items over the last 10 years. And if you go back even further and watch some stuff he said 20 or 30 or 40 years ago, the guy is right. If you panicked over the last couple of days and sold stocks or moved money around your 401k, you just realized an unrealized loss, and you lost a lot of money, right? Because you bet against America and you bet against Donald Trump. Big mistake. Let the man cook. He's on the right track. He's going to do the right thing.
As Galloway so chuckled at 2 weeks ago, congratulations, you played yourself. Right?
Exactly.
So my final thought is basically selling something to you guys, another idea here, because you guys know
this guy is a grifter.
We're starting a new show here. I think we're going to do it this week. You saw the announcement maybe last week. we're introducing a new concept called Buffoonology 101. It is a competition show between me and Ross, and you're going to decide who wins. It's basically like the concept of Buffoon of the Week that we used to do early here on the show. We're going to put up 2 nominees. We're going to rate them for you. We're going to measure them out for you. We're going to make our arguments, and then you guys get to vote for a week as to who wins. Now, this is my personal plea to everybody out there. Galloway has several allies out there. He has many friends. He has many, dare I say, shadow accounts. I'm not going to point to who. I'm not going to point to who. I'm just putting a comment on the screen. I'm not going to point to who. That might be one of them, for all we know. I don't know. It's just a name to most of you. To me, it might have some meaning. Point is, he has resources on his side. Don't let him win. I want you on my team, Team Gene, as we sort through who's the biggest buffoon every single week on Buffoonology 101. We're going to learn some things that are in the book. We're going to make arguments for you guys. We're going to have a little bit of a friendly rivalry. But I'm begging all of you out there. There's a lot of you out there watching right now. I see the numbers there. The gallery doesn't see them. I see the numbers because I'm running things here. Team Gene. Hashtag Team Gene. I need you. Please. Even when I'm wrong, say I'm right. And that's going to be on Buffoonology 101. It's going to debut on Fridays. Probably do it around 10 a.m. We're going to debut it. Where you guys get to pick the dumbest newsmaker of the week based upon the criteria we created in this whole sphere within this community. So help me, please. And that's my final thought.
Don't be a sucker. Vote for who you want. Don't listen to Gene.
Don't be a sucker for Galloway, is all I'm going to say. All right, my friend, listen. See? It's starting already. You thought I was joking, everybody. You thought I was joking. It's already out there, okay? There's a conspiracy against me on my own channel. Daisy. I might not be here in a year. This might all be Galloway territory. I don't know. The only thing keeping me here is my ability to handle the tech. Help me. Help me. All right, so now that we got all that out of the way, this was a fun one, man. I had a blast doing this one. Oh wait, is there more from Daisy? Okay, so Daisy's just laughing along with us now. That's good. I'm glad. Okay, yeah, I'm so glad. I'm so happy. So this was a fun one, pal. I'm looking forward to doing Buffoonology 101 with you. We're going to teach, we're going to entertain, and somebody's going to win. Oh, we got to come up with a punishment.
I don't know, but I'm prepped. Here we go. Let's go.
Well, listen, actually, you know what? We're on live right now. Let's come up with I think there needs to be an end of the year punishment. And
I think we need time to think about that one. I don't want to do that one on the fly.
All right. Well, okay. So we're going to table it, and we'll come up with something during the course of this. If you guys have suggestions for a punishment, I mean, it could be anything from a spoonful of hot sauce to the other has to make a video, pledging their heart to AOC or something like that. Or, maybe someone has to wear a Bernie Bro t-shirt. I don't know, something like that. Get us into the comments and let us know. But until next week, I guess, where we'll be talking about more of this stuff. You ready to shut this thing down, bro?
Shut it down. On to the next piece of work.
On to the next piece of work, and we do mean piece of work when we deal with all these people in politics. Thank you guys for watching so much. So many of you tuning in on X. I see you all there. Thank you for being there with us. But until next week, Gene and Ross, Behind Enemy Lines, we're going to shut this sucker down. So play our motherfucking anthem. Good night, everybody.
Not without electoral.
Go fuck yourself. Is that clear?
Don't let them have sway. Conservative battalions walking them out, marching through the streets while the buffoons all shout. Move in the shadows. this Democrat cage. In the dark, strategies unfold, allies on scene, but bonds remain bold. Commitment to the cause in the heart of the storms. In the name of freedom, we're breaking the norm. Cause let's stay blue behind enemy lines. Fighting for the truth, feels like wartime. Don't back down, keep it rugged and raw. Cool in the chaos, we're loud in this war. We're loud in this war. Let's stay blue behind enemy lines. Fighting for the truth, feels like wartime. Don't back down, keep it rugged and raw. Cool in the chaos, we're loud in